Dr. Hazel. He is also joined by Medical Chief of Staff at the JNF General Hospital, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, in addition to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, V.Hodge. Unlike other programs, this evening we're going to begin with a national address that was delivered by the Prime Minister earlier today. After that, we will have opening remarks by the Prime Minister and his guests. Stay tuned for that national address.
My fellow citizens and residents, I wish to update you on the current situation and the necessary measures we are taking to protect the health of the people of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We were all saddened by the news of the recent cluster of cases of COVID-19. At this point, I wish to empathize with the parents, the teachers, the students, and the communities impacted by the events over the last week. I appeal to the public to be sensitive to those who are affected. We should avoid naming persons, circulating photos, and/or disseminating any information on the affected individuals. Ultimately, we will have to live with COVID-19 for the foreseeable future, and the most effective way of doing this will be to get ourselves and your loved ones vaccinated. My priority as your Prime Minister and leader of your Team Unity government is to ensure the health, safety and security of every citizen and resident of this federation. In order to contain the spread of the deadly virus, your cabinet has accepted the following recommendations from our health professionals. 1. A curfew will be imposed from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily, starting from tonight, and for 14 days in the first instance, to decrease the possibility of continued spread of the virus. The number of passengers and public transportation, that is buses and ferries, will be reduced to 50% of the established capacity. This is to facilitate physical distancing and a resultant reduction in the risk of transmission of the deadly virus. Thirdly, strict adherence to non-pharmaceutical measures, that is, mask wearing, sanitizing, and physical and social distancing, must be observed in the public and at places of business and worship. Remember, your personal responsibility in this fight is of utmost importance. Fourth, all contact sports are suspended for the next 2 weeks. 5, schools will remain closed for 2 weeks in the first instance to facilitate contact tracing, testing, and other necessary precautions consistent with the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Act. Parents are advised to keep children safely at home. No local examinations will be administered during this period of school closure. The Ministry of Education has already begun to engage CXC to discuss alternative arrangements for any examinations scheduled during this time. Students, teachers, and parents will be subsequently informed of the relevant decisions taken by CXC. Teachers will engage students from grades 3 and higher via the established online modality of MS Teams. Absolutely no mass events will be allowed, as these could be super spreader events. 7. Funerals must be adhered to COVID-19 protocols and be mindful of capacity in the church. 8. Surveillance and extended contact tracing will continue. 9. Effective May the 29th, 2021, only fully vaccinated travelers will be allowed entry into St. Kitts and Nevis until further notice. Exemptions will be considered for citizens and residents. 10. Given the importance of vaccines in the protection of persons with the worst effects of COVID-19, and in the interest of public health, we have extended the hours for administering of vaccines. Health centers will be opened between the hours of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. in St. Kitts from Monday to Friday, and in Nevis between the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Extended hours of service will apply on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. until further notice. Please note that vaccines are a scarce commodity globally, but my government continues to work behind the scenes to secure extra doses of vaccines so that we would have sufficient to reach a herd immunity threshold. Our health personnel are working to quickly identify those who may need assistance. The measures we have taken and the investment that we have made in our health system are also making a difference. Our health system has remained strong and resilient so far. However, we must be careful not to overwhelm it. The way to avoid clusters like these is for persons to be vaccinated. As at yesterday, May 24th, we have administered 22,278 doses of the vaccine. This means that 49% of the target population have already received their first jab. I wish to, at this point, to commend all who stepped forward and did the right thing, not to protect themselves, but everyone else in this blessed federation through vaccination. We are getting closer to our target, but we need you who have not yet done so to come forward and be vaccinated. In my view, now is not the time for hesitancy. Now is the time to be vaccinated. Get vaccinated now to protect yourself. Get vaccinated now to protect your loved ones. For your children to return to school and remain in school, I encourage you to get vaccinated now. For the return of our tourism industry, I encourage you to get vaccinated now. For our businesses to have certainty so they invest and create more jobs, I encourage you to get vaccinated now. For our bars and places of entertainment, DJs, nail and hair technicians, etc. to thrive, I encourage the patrons and employees of these establishments to get vaccinated now. All of us want to see an end to COVID-19. To come out the shadow of COVID-19, we must all get vaccinated, and this must be done sooner rather than later. Now is the time to support, not slow down, our immunization program. These new infections show how quickly and how far COVID-19 can spread. We see how it can disrupt our schools, traumatize unsuspecting families, and create anxiety in many workplaces and indeed in the broader society. I strongly urge you to keep updated. Please get your information from official government channels or reputable sources such as the World Health Organization. The next 2 weeks will be challenging, but with God's grace, we will get through them working together constructively and responsibly. Until our immunization rates reach critical levels, we will continue to be vulnerable to such clusters. And that is why we all need to play our part to get us closer to herd immunity. That way we can have a greater sense of security and a return to normalcy. We must work together to contain the transmission of the virus. Our most powerful weapon in this regard is vaccination. In this war to defeat COVID-19, all we have are ourselves working and supporting each other in doing the right thing to protect ourselves and our loved ones. The more people immunize, the less vulnerable we will all be to the events like those of the past week. Now is the time for us as a nation to stay together, and for each of us to play our part, to protect each other, and to work together to see this virus off our shores. May God bless you and your loved ones, and may He continue to bless the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, favor us with His grace, protection, and mercy. I thank you.
Welcome back to Leadership Matters this evening. That was a national address delivered by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis that was aired earlier today. You were listening to a rebroadcast of that address. And not only does it provide critical updates for you, but it helps to set the tone for the discussion this evening that focuses on the continued fight against COVID-19. At this time, we're going to hear opening remarks from the Prime Minister himself. Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. A pleasant good evening to all who are viewing and tuning to Leadership Matters. I won't prolong much tonight. Just a few hours before now, I did address the nation, and the substance of that message still remains relevant for tonight and for the rest of the week. Save it would be remiss of me should I not highlight that today has been a red letter day as far as our vaccination rollout program is being concerned. And in fact, there are 2 records that have been set which are noteworthy. And for this, I want to commend all the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis who have made a special effort to encourage and who themselves have gone out to be vaccinated. Today, we have had the largest number of doses of vaccine administered for the year so far since we have started our vaccination rollout. I'm advised that today we administered 1,062 doses. This is again the largest number of doses that has been administered since we have started the rollout of the program. And I want to say that this effort was a collective effort across the Twin Islands of St. Kitts and Nevis, and all 17 health centers participated in this exercise. The records would reveal that at St. Peter's, we had 67 persons taking their first shot. At Molyneux, 35, Bastille, 94, Newtown 157, St. Paul's 10, Sandy Point 13, Old Road 26, Tabernacle 10, Keon 48, Deep Bay 8, Sadlers 10, Charlestown 144, Brown Hill 53, Combermere 21, and at Cajola 29 persons were vaccinated, making a total of 725 first-timers, as it were, being vaccinated today. Those receiving second doses total 337 for a total of 1,062. This then is an excellent performance and in fact should give all of us who are taking part in this battle against COVID-19 inspiration that all is not lost. And the second most important detail is that today we have crossed the half mark in that now we have more than 50% of the target population vaccinated. Indeed, the arithmetic would reveal that 51.6% of the target population have now been vaccinated. That is, have had their first dose. So this is an excellent performance by international standards. We have gone further afield than many over the limited period in which we have started this program. We should all feel a sense of pride in these achievements so far. And even as we look at the numbers that are now fully vaccinated, we are just about 20%. Again, this going is far better than those fully vaccinated in the EU, and far better, I'm advised, than what is happening in Canada, just to give some comparatives. So St. Kitts and Nevis still presses on, still continue to be an example of how we manage a major pandemic. Today we have had a vote of confidence, in my view, by the majority in the excellent work that the government is doing in the battle against the pandemic. And so for me, it is words of congratulations to the health team and the broader task force, and beyond them, the all of society team that have been working very hard really to defeat the pandemic, to get our country back to work again, to bring back more jobs, better incomes, better opportunities for all our people. I want to believe that our tomorrow will be better than our today. Better in terms of our commitment to the right thing for ourselves, for our communities, for our country. Clearly, the events over the last couple of days indicated what we all should have known, that COVID-19 will not respect us. It will not wait until we are ready to be vaccinated to attack us. It will not wait and to determine whether we are young or we are old, whether we are living in rural parts, suburban areas, or rural parts of St. Kitts and Nevis. There's a fierce urgency of now for all of us who are responsible to do what we must, to do the right thing, to come forward and be vaccinated. We are still so fortunate that while around the world there is a global shortage of vaccines, here we still have vaccines to be administered. That situation will not last forever. Therefore, I want to encourage all to move forward and become vaccinated. I am particularly delighted to have with us a panel of some of the best public servants that we have in this country, to commend them for coming on board tonight to further educate, elucidate, and encourage others with respect to this battle in which we are engaged. It is not yet over, but we are making progress, steady progress, and we want to continue in that path. I want to commend an educator in whom I have utmost confidence, Permanent Secretary in Education, Mr. V.Hodge, and to thank him for being here and thank him for returning home from yonder lands to be of further service to the country. I want equally to thank Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, who has been part of the health team of experts that have given yeoman service to the country. It will take a long list and too much time to enumerate the many areas in which he has put aside himself and his family to be of wider and greater service to this country that he clearly loves. Equally, I want to thank our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Hazel, for being here. Like Dr. Cameron, she too has been in this battle and have left no stone unturned in an effort to ensure that we have the opportunity to return to normalcy at the soonest possible time. To all three, I say thank you, and to all your family members, friends, and well-wishers who have given you support, I want to say to them thank you too, for by supporting you, they have supported the success of our country. Thank you again, Jackie, for being our able moderator tonight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. We're now going to hear from the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel.
Thank you, Ms. Bryan, and good night, a warm good night to everyone. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the world, and it has had significant impact on the Caribbean as a region. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Caribbean was the world's most tourism-reliant region, according to the New York Times. This claim is based on recent calculations by the World Travel Tourism Council. By the first quarter of last year, the region was struck by the coronavirus. Between then and now, the Caribbean islands, including St. Kitts and Nevis, have endured waves of COVID-19 infections, stringent curfews, and border closures. The net result is a drastic decline in tourism and devastating economic disruption. The social disruption is also significant. However, we are resilient and we must cope. The Caribbean has been responding to this pandemic for over 15 months now. Most member states are experiencing an increase in the number of positive cases, and over 50% of the Caribbean member states are reporting community spread. The number of confirmed cases in the CARIFA member states has surpassed 181,000. The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, the OECS territories, including Barbados, have reported 12,724 confirmed cases and 180 deaths. Most Caribbean member states have begun vaccine rollouts, with Anguilla attaining a coverage of 58.7% of its population with at least one dose. And in Antigua and Barbuda, they have achieved a coverage of 32.5% coverage with one dose. I wish to update you on the present COVID-19 situation locally. Within the last 24 hours, we have reported one additional case. This new case is referred to as case number 61, who is a national and is linked to cases number 51 and 52. Case 61 is in isolation. This additional case brings the total number of cases to 61, with 47 cases for St. Kitts and 14 cases for Nevis. It is important to note that 47 cases have fully recovered with 0 deaths. There are now 16 active cases, the highest number since we started our COVID response. These cases include 7 children between the ages of 3 years and 15 years, and 9 adults between 33 to 49 years. The active cases are stable and are being monitored. We are working assiduously to contain this cluster of COVID-19 cases. This term, cluster of cases, aptly describes the current transmission pattern in the Federation. Our COVID-19 vaccine rollout started 13 weeks ago, and as of today, 51.6% of the target population is covered with the first dose, and 19.1% of the target population fully vaccinated. The Ministry of Health continues its robust contact tracing exercise, which began last week, Wednesday, May 19th. The aim is to identify, quarantine, and test all possible contacts of the recent cases. Between last Wednesday and yesterday, a total of 742 persons have been tested. Ladies and gentlemen, all efforts are being made to break the chains of transmission of the virus and contain this expanding cluster of cases. We must flatten this second curve like we flattened the first curve last year. In essence, the virus is back. It has been reintroduced into our federation. So the big questions are, 1, how can you and I protect ourselves from this microscopic organism? And 2, how can we prevent the spread of this disease? The following 6 measures are ways in which you can protect yourselves from the COVID-19 virus and prevent its spread. The first measure, number 1, I urge you to come forward and get vaccinated. Empower yourself with the facts about the benefits of the AstraZeneca vaccine and accept the vaccine. It is safe and it is effective in preventing moderate to severe COVID-19 disease. It also reduces your risk of transmitting the disease. Number 2, I urge you to adhere to the COVID-19 prevention and control measures. These include wearing a face mask, maintaining good hand hygiene, and maintaining physical distance of at least 6 feet from others when in public spaces. I urge you to wear a face mask and sanitize your hands when using public transportation, like the bus and the ferry. This is very important because the person sitting next to you may be carrying the virus. Funerals have the potential to be super spreader events. Therefore, I urge you to wear your face mask at all times during the entire funeral service and even at the graveside. Also, we urge you to maintain a distance of at least 6 feet from other attendees. If you are providing care to a loved one, like a child, who is in quarantine because they may have been exposed to the virus, I urge you to wear a surgical face mask and disposable gloves at all times when interacting with that individual. Number 3, I urge you to avoid crowds at this time. Number 4, if you are experiencing any COVID-like symptoms, you must stay at home and call your regular doctor or the 311 hotline to seek advice regarding testing and medical care. Avoid taking public transport when experiencing COVID-like symptoms. If you are diagnosed with COVID-19, you must remain in isolation to prevent spread of the virus to others. So that's the 5th measure, and it's critical. If you have been diagnosed with COVID, you must remain in isolation to prevent the spread of the virus from yourselves to others. If you have been identified as a contact of a case and you are placed in quarantine, you must remain in place within the confines of the quarantine site to reduce the risk of exposure to others. If you are asked to self-quarantine, it means that you must remain in the confines of your home for the duration of the quarantine period. The surge in COVID-19 cases is a serious threat to our health system. Therefore, we must adhere to these recommended measures to curb the spread of COVID-19. As individuals, we each have a part to play to flatten this curve. In this fight, we have employed the all-of-society approach, and we must continue to do so. This cluster of cases is a stark reminder of the continuing uncertainty of life during this pandemic. It underscores the threat posed by this virus and its power to upset even the most carefully crafted health and travel protocols. We are engaged in a warfare, and I want to use this opportunity to remind you that the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine is our main tool right now in fighting this virus. We urge you to come forward and get vaccinated if you haven't already done so. Let us do all we can to maintain and protect the health of our people. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Laws. We're now going to hear from the Medical Chief of Staff at the JNF General Hospital, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson.
The evidence has shown that the COVID-19 virus remains a clear and present danger to communities with low vaccination rates. Also, countries with a high vaccination rate have seen a dramatic decrease in confirmed COVID-19 cases and deaths caused by the virus. To date, more than 1.7 billion vaccine doses have been administered worldwide, equal to 22 doses per every 100 persons. While on the surface this appears to be great news, if we look a little closer, we will see that there remains a stark difference in vaccine rollouts across the globe, with some countries yet to report a single dose. 84% of shots given to arms worldwide have been administered in high and upper income countries. Only 0.3% of doses have been administered to low income countries. In the United States, more than 61% of adults have received at least one shot, and that number is growing 2% per week. They are on track to reach 70% herd immunity threshold by July 4th. Daily cases and deaths are down significantly because of the mass vaccination program. In Britain, one of the few countries to have given shots at a greater share of the population than the United States, deaths are down more than 99% from their peak. This is clear and irrefutable evidence that the vaccine works, and the only way we will be able to get back to a sense of normalcy is through vaccination and achieving herd immunity. Many countries will not get there just now because of the lack of access to vaccines, and we will keep them in our prayers as fighting this virus is a global effort. Here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, we are blessed to have been afforded an opportunity that many do not have. That is, access to a safe and effective vaccine. Our vaccine rollout began on February 22nd, and to date, we have administered 23,340 doses, which is 51.6% of the target population having received their first shot, and 19.1% fully vaccinated. This is great news, and the people of the Federation need to be commended for stepping forward and doing the right thing. We have the opportunity to make it much better by the rest of you coming out in your numbers tomorrow and showing that you believe in science and the vaccine that you know will protect you and your family. We have the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which is being offered to you not just to protect yourself, but those who are dependent on you for protection, including every school child in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, every pregnant mother and the precious bundle she carries in her womb, every mother and grandmother over the age of 80 who, after years of contributing to our development, may now be too frail and unable to be vaccinated. The evidence is clear that it's only through the administration of a safe and effective vaccine that we will win this fight against the deadly coronavirus. The evidence is clear that this virus will continue its relentless march across the globe, leaving a path of sickness and death, and will only be stopped if a significant proportion of every community on every surface of this globe is vaccinated. The evidence is clear that no one is safe until everyone is safe, and we all individually and collectively need to do what is within our power and use the tools we have available, that is the pharmaceuticals and non-pharmaceuticals, to fight this virus. We have been coming to you for more than a year now, informing you and engaging you as we continue to fight this virus in an effort to keep you safe. We kept science at the core of every decision we made and stayed focused and did not get distracted. We informed you of our simple four-pronged approach to the management with the assessment of our progress at every stage. And this was, I will remind you, 1, to keep the virus at bay as long as possible with very stringent screening protocols at our ports of entry. We were successful at this, being one of the last places on the face of the earth to have its first imported case on March 24th, 2020. 2, that once the virus arrived, our aim was to limit hospitalization and death. We were again successful at achieving this, as to date, we are one of the few nations to have had 0 deaths and no major hospitalizations as a result of COVID-19. Our success at managing this pandemic over the last year caused us to be recognized internationally as the country with the lowest rate of confirmed cases and having the lowest COVID-19 risk in this hemisphere. 3rd, to limit the time between the development of community spread and the arrival of a vaccine, while at the same time keeping you safe with the prescription of non-pharmaceuticals. We were again successful in achieving this, having started our vaccine rollout 3 months ago on February 22nd, while we were COVID-free. The 4th and final leg is to vaccinate a significant proportion of the population to get us to herd immunity threshold so that we could effectively fight off the continued and relentless attack we will experience once the virus remains circulating globally. Over the last week, we have had a wake-up call as the reality of COVID-19 has finally hit home to many with the recent cluster of cases. My thoughts and prayers are with those who are adversely affected, especially those of school age who could not make a decision themselves to get vaccinated, as they remain totally and completely dependent on us adults for protection. We had repeatedly warned that it was only a matter of time before the virus returned. This recent cluster, sadly, will not be the last. Even after we get this cluster under control, we will have others, as persons will continue to return to our federation once our borders are open, and there will always be a risk. We must not, however, let the virus get a head start on us in this race. Get vaccinated and protected before the virus gets to you. By doing so, you have a 70% chance of being asymptomatic and not transmitting the virus, an 84% chance of not being severely ill and hospitalized, and 100% protection from dying from this disease. The life you save may just be your own, and that decision, literally and figuratively, lies in your hand. The vaccination rate for persons receiving their first shot has significantly increased over the last few days, and I'm very happy to see a record 1,062 persons got vaccinated today, with a record 725 persons receiving their first shot. I urge everyone who was hesitant to step forward and get vaccinated. There is no reason to wait for an alternative vaccine. The best vaccine to have is the one that is available to you when you show up to be vaccinated, knowing that it has gone through the required clinical trials and testing to a certain safety and efficacy. And the one we have is the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. We have said many times before that this is the only time in our lifetime that the singular action of an individual can have far-reaching consequences for us all. That singular action we are asking you now to perform is to get vaccinated. We had a slowdown in our vaccination rate, but we have had time to self-correct. But remember, in a pandemic, time wasted could result in lives lost, and inaction can be just as dangerous as the virus itself. There is therefore fierce urgency in getting us to herd immunity. Every case of COVID-19 that is prevented cuts off the transmission chains. Every case of COVID-19 prevented decreases the chance of the virus finding refuge in our homes, our schools, our churches, and places of business. Every case of COVID-19 prevented decreases the chance of you getting infected and having severe disease or dying from this deadly virus. Every case of COVID-19 prevented decreases the likelihood of the emergence of many more cases across our Twin Island Federation and variants down the line that may be resistant to the current vaccines. This virus is always trying to hitch a ride from one person to another, and we need to ensure that it runs out of places to go by protecting ourselves through vaccination. This virus has no respect for age, race, gender, religion, or political affiliation. It has one agenda and one agenda only, and it is to consume you and to use you as a transport vehicle to get to your family, friends, and loved ones. You have the weapon to stop it, and it's the vaccine. We need to reduce the opportunity for the virus to become communicable by continuing with the prescription of non-pharmaceuticals, social distancing, wearing a mask, and hand sanitizing, and avoiding mass events. We need to use our best defense we have against the virus, which is the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. I beg of you again, please do not hesitate. Go out and get vaccinated before it is too late. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wilkinson. We're now going to hear from the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, V.Hodge.
Thank you, Moderator, Ms. Bryan. I recognize our distinguished Prime Minister and our Medical Chief of Staff, Dr. Wilkinson, as well as our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Laws, and those of our viewing and listening audiences. From the beginning of the academic year, in September 2020, the school system here in the Federation, through the providence of the Almighty God, had the good fortune of delivering in-person instruction, face-to-face instruction to our students. Our students were happy to return to the physical school. In spite of the restrictions placed on them, they enjoyed being there. Their play was restricted. They had to wear a mask, hand sanitize, take their temperature taken on a daily basis. Our school administrators, teachers, support staff must be highly applauded for pulling together to ensure that the protocols were enforced and adhered to. For us in education, we weathered the storms well. During the year, much teaching and learning have been taking place. Students were assessed continuously on their learning experiences. Students of grade 4 and grade 6 experienced an enhanced curriculum that is being piloted in all of our primary schools in the Federation. This is just a sample of the successes that we enjoyed during the current school year as a Ministry of Education. On May 20th and 21st, for the first time our schools were given a 2-day midterm break as a respite from the challenges brought on us by COVID-19. And then look what happened. It is ironic that the COVID-19 unleashed its venom, its poison on our schools, just at the time when we were giving schools a break from the challenges created by COVID-19. Let's make no mistake, the COVID-19 is making a huge impact on our schools. Learning is disrupted just on the brink of examinations. Schools are forced to abandon their field trips and educational tours. Graduations may not be held except virtually. Parents are forced to remain at home to provide care for their children. Some parents may actually lose their jobs. COVID-19 is in our schools. Teachers, students, ancillary staff are contracting the virus. Some are in quarantine. We as adults, parents, teachers, must leverage the resources at our disposal to stop the spread of this deadly virus. Let me be straightforward here. Parents and teachers must be vaccinated. We have a moral and God-given responsibility to protect the children that God has given to us. Some of us are coming up with various excuses for not taking the vaccine. As recently as yesterday, during a parent-teachers meeting at the Sandy Point Primary School, I was shocked to hear one parent say that they need more education. And then I wondered under which rock this parent has been living. Because we have embarked on a lot of education programs to educate our citizens, our country, as to the vaccination administration. The Ministry of Education in itself organized a series of information sessions throughout the length and breadth of this country, educating parents, educating teachers, educating everyone. I wish at this juncture to extend the heartfelt appreciation and thanks to all the medical professionals who have worked with the Ministry of Education to ensure that these information sessions were delivered. I single out Dr. Dwayne Archibald, a young, brilliant doctor who, on finishing his night shift at the JNF, did not go home. Instead, he headed to the K-On Primary School, where he addressed both primary and secondary school teachers. And that is the kind of personal sacrifice that persons within the Ministry of Health are giving to us. It was at the end of that session that I actually took my first job on that occasion. I said to parents, I said to teachers, that at this time we have to stop stiffening our necks and hardening our hearts. I would like actually for somebody to check what the Bible says about stiffening our necks and hardening our hearts, and when you're calling, you can make reference to it, tell us what happens. As of today, the virus is rampant. We can say it is rampant in our school. It has forced our schools to close for the next 2 weeks in the first instance. And as Dr. Cameron said, this might likely happen again, repeatedly. During this time, our schools will deliver online instruction. The system is not perfect yet, but we have enough resources that will enable teachers to deliver online instruction. I was very heartened this morning when a parent called me on a different matter, and in the conversation she said that her daughter, who attends the Bronte Welch Primary School, would be receiving her first online lesson at 9 o'clock this morning. And so some teachers have actually started the process. We are currently in conversations with our principals who will guide this process. Additionally, our teachers have received the training that they can implement online instruction. So we are appealing to our teachers, our assistant teachers, or teaching assistants rather, to make use of the training that they've received and put their skills to the test. We are depending on you. The testing of children and teachers is underway in some schools. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we proceed with testing schools in some schools in the Basti area. This information has been communicated to principals who in turn have sent this information out to their students. We expect that persons would turn up as requested so that these tests could be administered. Let us do what is good, what is noble, what is honorable for the well-being of our country, St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hodge. And given all that has been said this evening, I am certain that you have a lot of questions, and our panelists stand ready to address your questions and concerns, and also any suggestions you might have to help the country get through this very critical time. Let me share the numbers with you so that when we take a break, you can prepare yourself to participate, because we're eager to hear from you. If you want to call in, there are several numbers that you can use. You can dial 466-2666 or 662-8674 or 767-4765. And we have an international line you can use if you're a national living abroad, and that number is 1-239-645-4500. Those numbers are listed at the bottom of your screen for your convenience. If you want to send your information or contribution via WhatsApp, you may do so by sending a text or a voice note to one of two numbers. We have 661-5683. That's 661-5683. We also have 660-7168. That's 660-7168. So you can send WhatsApp messages or voice notes to those numbers. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we will hear from you. Don't touch that dial. Stay tuned.
Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gon' be safe. Everybody gon' be safe. One kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up, yeah. 'Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. 'Cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose ya. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to let it roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
Welcome back to this edition of Leadership Matters, which is hosted by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honourable Prime Minister Timothy Harris. He is joined this evening by the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel, Medical Chief of Staff at the JNF General Hospital, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, and William Hodge, who is the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education. And they've all presented critical updates to you this evening regarding the situation with COVID-19 as well as the school system. And this is the point at which you are able to engage with them, ask them questions you might have, or hear your concerns, or maybe even make suggestions. We'll go to the phone lines and take our first call for this evening. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live. Hello.
Hello, good night.
Hi.
Jackie, give me 1 second. Let me turn my volume down. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you clearly. You can go
Very
ahead.
Good. Very good. This is Bucky Darrison, Bucky Howard, right? I want to say thanks again for the Prime Minister for taking his time out and having leadership matter, especially during this critical time. I know we're going to have a lot of callers, so I want to move on quickly, but I want to speak slowly so the question can be heard properly. Now, can we get an update on the 7th pay? Because this is very critical during this time as persons are in quarantine and some persons need their 7th pay. So maybe during the wrap-up, we can get a little update on the 7th pay. What is your impression of the vaccine turnout over the weekend? Because it appears as though persons are getting the message. It seems as though there might be an increase in the numbers. So could you give a little synopsis of the turnout? Now, I sent an article to the government there that speaks about government protects income of workers placed in quarantine or isolation, which is very good. I must commend the government on that. But what about the private sector? How will one actually file a claim if he or she is in quarantine? Does that happen after the return from out of quarantine or isolation? Or can somebody from within the doctor send an application to Social Security that this person is in isolation or quarantine, so time to come out, the fund is there for them, so they don't have to wait an extra week or two to be paid. So we're really looking at the private sector. I know the government doesn't have control over the private sector, but there must be something the government can do to kind of encourage the private sector to come on board, seeing that the government is doing so. Now, welcome back again, Mr. Hodge, and I know the school is in good hands, and whenever the government needs you, you will be back, so don't worry. You're not going to go anywhere. You have made a decision to close the school for 14 days, and like you say, it might be longer. How is that process going? How are the feedback from the parents and the teachers about this decision that you have made to help to secure our future, which is the children? What about AVEC, though, and the college? Because I'm not hearing anything about them. I know it's only the early childhood and government school, and I think private school mentioned, but I haven't heard anything about AVEC and the college, and that has been brought to my media today, right? Another question. Can you give an update of how many adults and children are now being in quarantine? I know their names cannot be released, but just to say, well, like, there are 20 males, 15 females, 3 adults. Could that be mentioned tonight? So at least we kind of get a sense that, hey, this thing is serious and we have to continue to vaccinate. Now, in closing, what happens if we reach herd immunity by, let's say, the middle of July, and we still have a community spread? What are we going back to normalcy? Or if some party of our industry will remain closed? Because it seems as though the partying, the entertainment industry are getting hit hard. I feel like they're being targeted, because every time there's a COVID issue. They're the ones who are feeling the pressure in our curfew from 11 to 5, which means that it is a slowdown again in the economy turning over. So they would like to know, how what benefit could they get out of when we reach that target mark in, let's say, July. And Mr. PM, you continue to be safe and be careful with people. You have some people in your ministry leaking information and spreading false things. You have to be careful with them. If you have to discipline them, you need to. Because they're trying to mash up the country with the fake news. And they're not going to make you look bad, because when it comes to Buckingham media, I will let them know it is fake news. And that is not what the government is all about. Mr. Prime Minister, I got your back, and your country is doing a good job. This is Bucky got it, and Bucky has got it. Over and out.
Thank you so much for your contribution to the program this evening. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good evening to the panel right there. Prime Minister, good evening. But this question is to Mr. Hodge. Curfew. The Prime Minister said earlier this afternoon that curfew starts from 11 until 5 a.m. But what about the school children? I was thinking about the school children, especially those in high school, where I think that their curfew was supposed to be starting from 8, because school children love to know they're up and down the place. And there's where you bring in the army, the police, everybody to walk through the lanes, the alleys, the gutters, everywhere, to look for these school children who's supposed to be home. Remember, in the day, they're roaming up and down the street. In the night, it's no different for some of them. You understand where I'm coming from? So that was my question to Mr. Hodge.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution. He has taken a note of that question. We'll take, unfortunately, we lost that caller, but we'll move on to another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good night, Ms. Brian.
Hi, good evening.
And good night to the Honourable Prime Minister, Dr. Wilkinson, Dr. Laws, and V.Hodge. Now, I want to commend you all again, Mr. Dr. Wilkinson and your team. You all are doing a wonderful job. And the Honourable Prime Minister and his cabinet. Now we have the community spread that what some people did want. Well, they get it now. I will put it in where they get what they want now. But I know that you are there, looking over the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis as the frontline workers. And I know that you all will continue to do a good job to overcome this community spread and do what you all got to do. Because no matter what, this is our country and we got to protect it by whatsoever. When I listen to some people talk, up to tonight I was in a gas station and a young guy, you understand? I think that he's the manager of the station, the manager there over the workers them there. And when I listen to him talk, he said that they should all like Mr. Pan radio every day. You can't tell the Prime Minister close down the country. Close down the country. They close down the country. I said, when they close down the country, what the people are going to do? Because so much of things there. The task force is doing a wonderful job. We get in there with the community spread. They're going on and picking up people according, and people coming forward and doing what they got to do. He said, no, they close down the country and stop pick up tax. Let stop pick up tax and all those things. Let the people stop pay light bill and the water bill and all those things. I said, when the people stop pay water bill and the light bill, what the hospital going to do? What the school going to do? What the prison going to do? Where all the government institutions, them, the civil servant, them going to do when they stop doing that? A young guy, I believe that that's supposed to be one of our future politician in this country, because he's managing an institution in this country. So, Mr. Prime Minister and your team, you all continue to do a good job. And look at what the people of this federation, I always say that you're a God-sent man, and I know that you will do in your endeavor best to do what you got to do for the ordinary men and women and the rich and the poor in this federation under this point of this COVID now. You all have a wonderful month. God bless you and keep you.
Thank you so much for your contribution to the program, caller. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Everybody. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, I want to thank you for every week you continuously bringing update to the nation concerning the country, the health, and everything. And I want to thank the two angels who just received the wings the other day. Jackie, you don't have no sign on the front to tell you what the numbers is on the TV. So check that out. And to the Minister of Education, I thank you to come in to join with the Prime Minister and the doctors and everybody to make sure that everything going all right in the schools and different things. Mr. Prime Minister, you put me in a jam now because I was planning to go for road march this year. But I noticed you have a heavy song out, checking out the chart. So now I have to go now and recircle back to see if I could catch up with you. But I promise you tomorrow I update one your thing, and I will make sure you get one tomorrow, and so on. But God bless you all, and continue the good work you all doing. Obstacles always in the way.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution, caller. I will bring to the attention of the ZIZ team what you said about the numbers and see if there's any way they can make them more visible. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Good evening.
Good evening, I'm on.
Yes, you are. We're hearing you. Go right ahead.
Good night, my wonderful CMO and Mr. Hodge. I am so glad you all can come back to update us on the latest. Work with the best Prime Minister, and he will work with you. You all. Miss Bryan, you is a very good host and doing a very good job, and take time to explain. My wonderful Prime Minister, none like you, and will never be. More the abuse, you're doing. You did not get there by mistake. It was God. So what's all the fuss? It's vexing to me. They're on their radio station every day saying you're not doing nothing, especially one. They better be careful, and thank you. We would have been done gone in. Let them watch all over the world and Trinidad, other countries, all over. The people are dying like flies. We can't afford that here. And in the region, they are saying St. Kitts is the second country, no death. Thanks to you, Prime Minister. If they don't want to take the vaccine, let them hear one dead. As they're speculating, let them listen to other Prime Minister every day. They're not making joke. They will want to travel. Let them rant and rave. God put you up. He will decide. Talk all they want. It's only 6 years. We must not take no vaccine to cover nobody. Thanks for now.
And thank you for your encouraging words, caller. We appreciate your call. Thank you so much for participating in the show. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening to the panel. This question is to the Prime Minister or the doctor can answer. Anyone of them can answer it. What in number 47, when you guys detect number 47 having COVID, is because the number 6 complained about the COVID. You guys found out from number 6? Because if number 7 is someone who came in, where that number 7 was in a quarantine area. So I am very concerned how number 46, get COVID from 47. Who breached what, where? Because there is some type of slackness somewhere around the line. Number 46 is not supposed to be with number 47. So can you guys shed some light on it? Because that is what people need to know. How number 46 become the person have COVID when number 47 came in on a flight? And I would like to ask the Prime Minister this question. Did he came in on a private flight, a commercial flight, a boat, a parachute, we would like to know what this person number 47 came in on, and why is it he never been quarantined? Because there's a breach somewhere along the line, and now everybody is blaming number 46. Where number 46 never bring it in. That means number 47 give her. So I will let you know, please.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution, caller. I know it has been made of your questions, and I will put them to the relevant panelists. We'll take another call at this time. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
My question will be, preferably, I think Dr. Wilkinson can answer this for me. When the vaccine first came, you said that there is an extended time of taking the first shot and the second shot of 10 to 12 weeks. Persons who are now going, because you all are urging people to go take it, because of they're going to expire next month. So there is a short time frame between getting the first shot and the second shot. Will it be still effective, as if there was this long time frame between the two of them? That is what I would like to know.
Okay. Dr. Wilkinson has made a note of your question. Thank you so much for putting it to him. I'm sure if you asked, that means there's at least one other person out there who wants to know. So thank you for that. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome back, Mr. Prime Minister. We missed you last week.
Thank you, Mr. Howell.
And I hope all the rest of your panel is fine. Just a quickie. I missed the initials, the comments from your panelists and yourself, but just a curious question. Persons who are fully vaccinated are given 9 days in quarantine. Those who are not, I don't understand, only now, only nationals can come back home unvaccinated. Is there a scientific reason why 9 days? Why not 7? Why not 10? I would be really interested to know the significance of the 9-day vaccination period for fully vaccinated arrivals in the Federation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, caller, for putting that question. Do we have any additional calls? If we do, we can take a few more. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Yeah, good evening.
Oh, hi. Good evening.
Yes, I'm trying to follow that caller who asked about the explanation about the 46 and 47 cases. I guess we want to get that information because we're trying to follow the sequence of who infected whom. You know, that's the way I think that caller is going with it, and I definitely want to piggyback off of him and get that information out because I understood that one of those persons came in from Argentina, and if so, I believe personally that travelers coming from South America should have been banned from coming into the Federation because of that Brazil being in South America. Those strains is down there in South America. I believe that you guys need to tighten up. It must be a breach somewhere, and that person who got infected, who is a house keeper, they should not be working in that area with persons coming into the Federation unless they are vaccinated, because that in itself is a breach. You know, those persons who are working in the tourist industry, they all need to be vaccinated if they're going to be coming up in close contact with people that's coming into the Federation, because this now is exactly why there's a community spread. You know, that Argentina person, you know, the Federation should not be taking visitors from South America because they're going to bring the strain in. And persons need to understand, you know, you guys need to get tough on this stuff. If people are going to work in the hospitality field, that's who's the people you guys need to make sure are vaccinated. And we need the further explanation on that from the experts. Can you please get that information out for us tonight, please? Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. I've made a note of your concern in relation to the previous call, and our panelists, I'm certain, will try their best to clarify and provide whatever information they can about the matter. We'll take a few more calls, and then we'll have to break to hear from our panelists to respond to some of the callers who have already called in. So we'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Good night.
Hi, good evening.
Hello?
Go right ahead.
This is from Mr. William Hodge. The passage of scripture is Exodus 32, verse 9 and 10. And the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation. Exodus 32, 9 and 10.
Thank you so much for following up, Mr. Hodge. There you have it, the scripture as requested, and I want to thank the caller for. That's how participatory our listeners and viewers are. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good night.
Hi, good evening.
I would like to ask two questions. I'm not sure if it was indicated before. The individuals that have tested positive for COVID-19, were those individuals symptomatic or asymptomatic? I don't think that is something that was shared. I would also want to know, as it relates to the persons that are home on self-quarantine. On Monday, Dr. Phipps would have indicated that those persons would be receiving benefits from Social Security. However, Social Security only pays 65% of the individual's average salary. So would the employer be paying the balance? That is what I'd like to know.
Okay, thank you so much for your question. And it will be put to the panelists. Thank you so much. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good evening to the panel. I just want to ask a question. If you take your vaccine, I take mine since about March, and I'm supposed to go back next week. Could I take it before my actual schedule? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll take our final call this evening. Welcome to, unfortunately, we lost that call. Any callers who weren't able to get through, hopefully we'll be able to facilitate you and entertain your question or concern a little later in the program. At this point, though, we must pause and address a number of questions that have been put to the panelists so far. The first of which is an update, Mr. Prime Minister, on severance payment. I don't know if you'd like to address that quickly.
The severance payment have been advised, and I will just verify in a minute or two, but so far we have paid out claims, satisfied claims of over 2,000 persons, applicants, and we have paid in the region of about $31 million. So the majority of the claims received last year have now been processed. That is the information that I have.
Thank you so much for that update. We have another question about what is your impression of vaccine turnout over the weekend?
Over the last 2 days, we have had record turnout. Monday was a public holiday, and despite the fact that this was a public holiday, we had several hundred persons showing up and getting vaccinated, and more significantly, a record number of persons coming forward and having their first shot. And we saw today, again, we broke a record. This is the first time we crossed 1,000 persons in a day, with over 700 plus persons receiving their first shot. And so initially, when we started on February 22nd, the numbers were significant. But we also know that as it relates to persons coming out to get vaccinated, studies have shown that 30% will voluntarily come forward and get vaccinated. And another 30% are persons who are considered undervaccinated and will come once they receive the correct message and also once it is made convenient for them. And we have done that. We have had a robust education program making sure that our persons had all their questions answered. We have gone into factories and institutions to make it convenient for persons to get vaccinated, and have also extended the clinic times that persons can get vaccinated. And we know that there is some genuine vaccine hesitancy, and it takes certain things to trigger persons to go forward. And I believe that the clusters that we said, which we kept saying that this was going to happen, and it occurred, this acted as an impetus for persons to come forward and get vaccinated. And so I do hope that we continue to see these numbers continue to climb over this week. We have gone past 50%, and that is significant, which means that more than half of the country, they have listened to what we've been saying, and they're coming forward to make sure that we get towards herd immunity.
Jackie, can I just add? Just to give some ideas to the data. So on Saturday, over the weekend, 269 persons came forward to get their first jab. By Monday, that number went up to 691. By Tuesday, 725. And so between over the last 3 days when the health centers were open, 1,685 persons came forward to get their first jab. And a similar trend in terms of those coming forward for their second appointments. On Saturday, 116, Monday, 128, by Tuesday, 337. So over these past 3 days, 2,266 doses were administered.
Thank you so much. We have another question asking, how will one file a claim if the person is in quarantine, and this is with regards to their job? And I think that can also be tied in with the person who asked if employers would pay the difference of what they get on their salaries, as Social Security only pays 65%. They were asking about that. So I think an answer could be given to both of them.
As someone who is in active practice and is involved in filling out Social Security forms, persons get forms filled out all the time, even if they're incapacitated in hospital. Sometimes they might be away receiving medical care, and provisions are made to have these forms filled out. And so I believe that the same thing can be had if someone is in quarantine.
And with regards to the 65% being paid by Social Security and the remainder, do you know if that will be paid by the employer?
I don't know if someone else can answer that. I cannot honestly answer that at this point in time, but we can research that and come back to you.
It is something certainly we can explore to see as a compassionate response whether employers will be prepared to make some contribution to the employees who find themselves quarantined as a consequence of the COVID-19 situation. The standard rule, though, is that once someone is sick, their entitlement properly is to recover from Social Security, and the quantum is legislated, or the percentage, which you have stated, or the call is stated, for 65%, that is what the law says. Any other thing really is compassion coming from the employer.
We also have a question, Mr. Hodge, this one is definitely for you, asking what the feedback has been like from parents and teachers with regards to the school closure, and they asked if that also includes AVIC and CFPC, because they have not heard about those two institutions.
Thank you, Jackie. The AVIC is closed as well. In terms of CFBC, well, first of all, I need to back up to say that it's not the Ministry of Education that would decide an educational institution would close. That comes from the Chief Medical Officer, the Ministry of Health. We, in our deliberations, decided to close Sandy Point Primary and Charles E. Mills initially. After we realized that the impact was greater, then the meeting with government officials, ministers and other officials decided that it's prudent to close all schools. AVEC is a technical and vocational school. Yes, it is a tertiary level institution, so to speak. However, we took the decision to close that school as well on the advice of the principal. In terms of the CFBC, they have always have the capacity to do blended instruction. And so if there is a situation that would warrant closure, they can easily switch over to online. But based on the advice of the CMO, there's no data as yet, as of now, that is giving an indication that that institution needs to close. They are currently wrapping up their teachings, getting into examination mode. In terms of examination, I just want to say that as of today, with the CXC Council meeting, they have made a decision to delay the start of the CAPE exams and the CSEC exams by 2 weeks. SBAs are extended until the 30th of June. In terms of the impact, well, we know that parents are concerned, because especially those who are working parents, and they are at present trying to secure letters for the employers. That is being worked on in conjunction with the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Health. We are hoping by the end of this week we can have that letter ready, but employers are asked to be patient, because we want to make sure that the letters are issued to the appropriate persons. Teachers, some of them were ready to jump in, as I said in my presentation, to start teaching today. Other teachers are in the process of preparing. All of the schools today were expected to have virtual staff meetings where they would have started to discuss the instruction for the students over the next 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Mr. Hodge. I believe so. Did you speak to the feedback from parents and teachers? Yes. I believe so. Okay. Thank you. We have a question asking for an update on the number of children. Well, they want a breakdown, rather, of the number of children and adults in quarantine. Is that something you can share, Dr. Laws?
Okay, so that's a very good question. And as P.S. Hodge just mentioned, initially we targeted one grade at the Sandy Point Primary on Saturday, but then this was expanded to 2 grades or 6 classes. And then at the Charles E. Mills Secondary School, we targeted a number of classes, and so the students in these classes were tested, and their households are in self-quarantine. We have a number of individuals in quarantine at government and COVID-19 certified facilities. And so because of the big number of persons in self-quarantine, it's a little bit impossible for me to give you specific numbers tonight. However, we can use the total number of persons tested as a proxy. And so as I said in my opening remarks, as at yesterday, end of work day yesterday, a total of 742 persons have been tested. And so for purposes of our discussion tonight, we're going to use that figure as a proxy.
Thank you so much for that. We have a question asking about what happens, we got a question asking what happens if we get to the middle of July and there is still community spread? Is there a plan for when or if we get to that stage?
Okay, well, I think that question was also tied in with herd immunity. There was a question about herd immunity.
I'm not certain, but
Yes, okay.
if you can tie it in, do so.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is to make sure that we vaccinate as many persons as possible, because as we keep saying, by vaccinating persons, we decrease the risk of transmission from one person to the other, and we also make sure that you don't get seriously ill and die from COVID-19. So if we get to the herd immunity threshold, that would help us in terms of containing the spread of the virus. And so with the combination of the social distancing measures that we're asking persons to do, with our extensive contact tracing, and with the improvement in the vaccination rates, we should be able to contain this outbreak. I know that early on in the management of outbreaks in a number of countries, the thing was to lock down, but a number of countries are moving away from that, because that was at a time when one did not have the pharmaceutical measure to help to control this. And our lockdown, although a lockdown for 14 days will help to stop the spread of the virus, that also has to take into consideration with the population demographics, the population density, the environment in which you're in terms of weather, etc. So there are a number of things that come into play. And so we do believe that with the combination of pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical measures, we should be able to contain this. Now, as it relates to the herd immunity question also, because someone asked, well, what happens if we got to herd immunity? Are we going to start back with the parties, etc., so that the entertainers can benefit? And I've said before that the reaching herd immunity is not a panacea, is not an on and off switch. And so one doesn't reach to 70% threshold and just stop doing everything else. We would still need to continue the social distancing measures, because until the virus is eliminated from the globe, we will have the continued threat. And so we will still have to function within a new norm. And so it's not that we will get to 70% and we start having massive parties again. What I want to say, however, because in our education sessions, a number of the persons who plan mass events, they have been hesitant in terms of coming forward to get vaccinated. You need to understand too that if you want to get back to some sense of normalcy, where we can start having some of these events in a safe manner, you need to come forward and get vaccinated, and you need to encourage the persons who come to your parties to get vaccinated.
Thank you so much for that. We have a question, Mr. Hodge. It was put to you specifically about having an 8 p.m. curfew for school children.
Well, the Ministry of Education can't impose curfews. In our conversation, some persons did feel that an earlier curfew would have been more effective. However, we see it as parental responsibility to enforce that their children are at home at that certain time of night, at 8 o'clock, and you're not out with your parents or accompanied by adults. You should be at home getting down with your schoolwork and so on. But it is something that is of concern to us within the Ministry of Education, where we know that students are out late. It results in them coming to school late the next morning with their homework not completed and such like. I also wanted to touch briefly on Dr. Law's comment that caused me to say that some teachers they welcomed the closure of the schools because they were beginning to get concerned about their own health and well-being. And so this is an opportunity to say to those teachers that it's really time that you're going to get tested as well. If you have a growing concern about your own health, then it's time for you to go and get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Yes. There was one question where somebody asked the schools that were affected. I guess we can mention them, or should we not? I mean, the information is already in the public domain, the channel's emails, the Sandy Point Primary School, Bastille High, Washington Archibald High, Seventh Adventist. Those are the areas that will be tested, the schools that will be tested tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We have a couple of callers who are curious to know about how the disease was transmitted and asked how did case number 46, as you have been referring to the cases, get COVID-19 from case number 47, and if it was a matter of someone breaching the system somewhere.
Okay, so our borders are open, and we are accepting inbound passengers from countries, and so when the inbound passengers land, they have to travel the corridor of containment from the airport via taxi to the hotel. Now, at the hotel, if it's COVID-19, well, the hotels are COVID-19 certified, but some hotels offer vacation in place. And so the frontline hotel workers, they are exposed to these high-risk tourists. And they offer their services like food and beverage service, housekeeping staff. They provide cleaning services to the rooms. And it's through these interactions, if there is a breach in protocol, the virus can be transmitted from the high-risk inbound passenger to the worker, the frontline worker in the hotel setting.
Thank you so much for that. Dr. Wilkinson, this one was put to you specifically asking if the vaccines would still be effective if they're taken within a shorter time frame than the 10 weeks that was originally stipulated.
Okay, that's a very good question. Now, the science has shown that after the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine, you have a 76% efficacy, and a dosing interval beyond 4 weeks and up to a maximum of 12 weeks, the efficacy for the second dose increases up to 82.4%. And so ideally, if you gave the vaccine between 10 to 12 weeks, the efficacy should be greatest. But the manufacturers recommend that it can be given anywhere out of 4 weeks. And because of the situation that we're in right now, where some persons were hesitant, we have to use the vaccines that we have available. We have shortened the time between the doses, but the efficacy should be still significant, because, as I said, all of the recommended is between 8 to 12 weeks. It can be given based on the manufacturers after 4 weeks safely.
So in other words, if you are coming on board this week to receive the vaccine for the first time, you will be given an appointment of about 4.5-5 weeks in which you come back for your second dose ahead of the expiry date of the batch that we have in hand.
We had a follow-up question to the one I asked before, which I overlooked. So allow me to go back a bit, asking about how number 46 would have contracted the virus. And the person also asked, what kind of flight did number 47 arrive in the country on? And I think you addressed it. Why wasn't the person quarantined? But as we have seen on this program, there's some persons may not be aware of the difference between quarantine and vacation in place. I don't know if you'll use the time to clarify that as well.
Yes, so all inbound passengers into this destination, you are quarantined. Now, there are 2 types of quarantine. You can go to your hotel room, whereby you are confined to the room for the duration of the quarantine period, or at 1 or 2 of the COVID-certified hotels, you can vacation in place, whereby you are to remain within the confines of the hotel facility, but you have access to some of the services within the hotel. So you can go to the restaurant and have breakfast, lunch, dinner. You can go to the pool, or you can go to the beach, and some of the gym, and you can go to the gym. So you can have access to some of the services that are offered at the hotel. So all inbound passengers are quarantined, but some are in quarantine, confined to rooms, some vacation in place, confined to hotel.
Are you able to say what kind of flight the person arrived on, if it was a commercial flight?
Commercial.
Okay. This question asks, why 9 days for quarantine as opposed to any other number, and if there was a particular reason why 9 days was chosen for fully vaccinated persons?
We have to remember, first of all, that even though someone is fully vaccinated, they still have a small chance of transmitting the virus. And while we were a so-called virgin territory, where a significant proportion of the persons here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis were not vaccinated, the vaccinated incoming traveler still posed a risk to persons who were not vaccinated. Now, the ideal quarantine period is 14 days, but one has to strike a balance between risk and open up the country and generating economic activity. And so most persons will agree that we must have some sort of quarantine period, and so we couldn't move from 14 to 0. So the question is now, why not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, why we chose 9? The average incubation period of the virus is 4 to 6 days. And so persons could become infected with the virus, but test negative on the 4, 5, 6, and 7. And studies have shown that these persons, they may become symptomatic the following week, and at least 20% of persons may test positive on the 9 or 10, even if they tested negative on the 6th and was carrying the virus. And so we thought that a balance of safety was choosing 9 to decrease the risk of the virus re-entering the country.
The persons who have tested positive so far, have they been symptomatic or asymptomatic?
In general, most have had mild symptoms, for example, fever, runny nose, stuffiness, cough. So most of the 16 active cases have expressed mild symptoms.
Thank you so much for that. At this stage, we've addressed the concerns raised by the callers, and the questions have been answered. And we have to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue taking your calls and your questions, and we'll go to our WhatsApp messages and hear from the panelists. So don't touch the dial, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You know, it's me, Mr. H.E., and I'm here with one message: roll up to roll out. We all know how difficult things have been during this COVID-19 pandemic. While we continue to wash our hands, wear face masks, and practice social distancing, how about we take it one step further and get vaccinated? Call the nearest health center to find out if you are eligible to be vaccinated. Or you can contact the Ministry of Health at any one of these numbers down below. Don't be discouraged by the negativity. We all have a role to play in protecting this federation. So, St. Kitts and Nevis, let's roll up to roll out.
Welcome back to Leadership Matters. I'm told we have quite a high volume of calls and text messages this evening. I appreciate that so many of you are using this forum to get the answers you need to better understand the situation, because once you better understand, you can make better decisions. So we are going to try our best to take as many calls and as many text messages as possible. If we are unable to read your text message on the air, then someone will be trying to respond to that off the air. So we are going to try our best to respond to as many of the questions and concerns we have gotten. You know that we try our best to, but this evening is particularly special, and I'm happy you understand the situation. So we'll go back to the phone lines now, but before we do so, if you didn't have the numbers before, let me share those numbers with you now, just in case you weren't able to get in the first time. 466-2666. We have 662-8674, 767-4765, and the international line is 1-239-645-4500. The WhatsApp message and voice note numbers are 661-5683 and 660-7168. We'll go back to the phone lines. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You are live.
Hello.
Hello, good evening. You're live.
Hi, a most pleasant good evening. How are you all doing? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. We're doing
loud
well.
And clear.
How are you?
A most pleasant good night. I'm calling from St. Thomas, West Virgin Islands. And I'm just calling to say good night to the panelists, good night to the doctors, good night to Mr. Samuel, good night to my loving Prime Minister of the Federation of Think It and Need It, and good night to the Federation of Think It and Need It. I'm just calling to say this is no finger-pointing time now. This is serious time, even here in Virgin Islands. And I'm asking the people of the Federation of Think It and Need It, please don't be pointing a finger. I'm asking you all to do your part to kill this virus. This thing is not going in place right now. So whatever you can do as a citizen of the Federation of Think It and Need It, do what you all have to do. There's no finger pointing who to do the job and who lying or whatever. I work in the tourism business. I work in a hotel in St. Thomas. And when we open up, they said that when the guests start to come, we're not going to give no service unless they check out, or days after they stay, if they're going to stay more than 5 days. Now, they have us going to the rooms, like every, people spending 2 days, 3 days, and we have to go and give them service. And so we have to protect ourselves. And I ask my staff, do not go into the room without your mask. Make sure you have your gloves on. And if you find that you go to a room and you're not feeling safe, open the door slowly, spray some Lysol, leave that room with the Lysol and go to another room, spray another room. By the time you get back there, some germs must be killed. Put all pillows to sun and everything. And this is no pointing whether 46 or 47. This young lady didn't go in a place. She got it in the hotel, just like where I'm working. It could have been me. It could have been somebody else. So no finger pointing. Let's do what we have, please. The Federation of Thinkers and Leaders. I'm living in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, and right now our numbers are going up. Our governor was on the radio. This is not pointing finger time. I'm begging you all, do what you all have to do. Get vaccinated. Do not say that the vaccine is going to stop it, but it's 100% better than if you don't have it. I'm begging you all, please, I'm begging the people of the Federation of Thinkers. God bless you all. God bless Dr. Law. God bless Dr. Cameron. God bless Mr. Samuel, Mr. William, and the entire Federation of Thinkers. Prime Minister, I want to say something to you. God bless you. I don't know how good you are tonight because you are tired, but don't feel guilty. God have your back. I know you're the honest man, and you're not going to hide from the people of Thinkers. And each and every day I pray for you because your cousin Anthony Harris was one of my deacons at my church. And if you have the same attitude like Anthony. I know you're a fair God man. I'm fair God man. And you is going to lead our country to a good success and continue doing what you do, Prime Minister. I love you. I love you. I love you. God bless the Federation of Thinkers and Neighbors, and may you all continue keeping up the vote. Dr. Lord, I know you're a bit tired. Dr. Cameron, I love you all. God bless. You've been doing a good job. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That caller calling in all the way from St. Thomas to make a plea with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you so much for your words of encouragement. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good night to everybody. Greetings in the name of Jesus Christ. Now, there are a few things that I would like to say. First of all, I would like to start up by saying, based upon what I've read in the Bible, where God has given governments the duties and the stuff in the Bible, like Romans chapter 13 and so. Government enforcing lockdowns of countries, social distancing and that sort of stuff goes against the teachings of the Bible. And therefore is sinful in God's sight and ought to be repented of. That is what I read in the Bible. Now, secondly, during November, December in 2019 and early in 2000, January, so on, people were getting very sick, going to the hospitals, that sort of stuff. Could anybody confirm that that was not COVID? And if that was not COVID, what evidence is there that that was not COVID? Because from my understanding, people have been saying that the symptoms that they suffered at that time were very similar to what they hear the COVID symptoms are. Also, I would like to ask as well, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts in America have said that if you use 36 or more cycles of amplification to identify the virus, you are more or less dealing with false negatives because you're dealing with dead nucleotides. So you're mostly dealing with false negatives. Anything that is 36 and over cycles of amplification to identify the virus. And even 35, he put a big question over 35 cycles. I have even heard of other experts even lower the cycles. So I would like to know, for false positives. So I would like to know how many cycles of amplification are used for us to identify the virus. That is another question I would like to know. Also, somebody who has overcome the virus, and there are people in the Federation, as we know, who have overcome the virus. And when you overcome the virus, you had it, you overcome it, you build up an immunity to the virus. You have antibodies to the virus, and you build up an immunity to the virus, a very strong immunity. And not only, but studies in Denmark, for example, have shown that such people who have built up a natural immunity to it because they overcame it, do hardly ever get it a second time. And even if they get it a second time, which is very rare, it's nowhere near as bad as when they first had it. So why should such people be vaccinated when they already have a very strong natural immunity to the virus? Also, on top of that as well, I would like to know, where in St. Kitts, could anybody in St. Kitts get an antibody test to know if they already had the COVID in the past? Because most people who have had the COVID were asymptomatic or had very mild symptoms and did not know that they had it. So can somebody in St. Kitts get an antibody test and know if they had it, and how can they go about getting an antibody test? Also, I would like to know, what scientific study?
Okay. Thank you so much for your contribution to the program, caller. We didn't get your last question. Unfortunately, you got disconnected, but you can always try calling back. I think I got most of what you asked while you were on the line. We'll go to another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live. Unfortunately, we lost that call. We'll take another one. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Welcome to Leadership Matters call. Okay. Do we have any additional calls? If we don't, I think we can move on. We can move on with the calls that we do have at this time. And we have do we have any additional calls? Okay. We have a caller asking several questions before they were cut off. Persons were, according to that the caller, I think we have the right person here to address these questions in the person of Dr. Wilkinson, asking persons were getting sick in January, they said, how do you know if it was COVID-19 or not?
So we've answered this question repeatedly. So last year, we had a few weeks when persons developed flu-like symptoms, and samples were taken. They were sent to the Caribbean Public Health Agency in Trinidad, and the samples returned positive for influenza. And so we have objective evidence that it was an outbreak of influenza at that time and not COVID-19.
Okay, we have two more calls. We have a few more calls on the line, and I think we can make these our final calls for this evening so that we can wrap up in a timely manner and get in as many calls as possible. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, I'm calling back again. I forgot a question that I had.
Yes, if you can say so quickly, please.
I will surely do that.
Thank
Mr. PM, this is not the question, but over the last year, I would not like to be in your boots, and I don't suppose it would be enjoyable for anybody to be a prime minister during these most pressuring times. But we sympathize with you and we give you our full support. The question is, though, for the experts, in this world where there's so many fakes, how can we determine for an incoming passenger who claims to be fully vaccinated, how can we determine that their vaccination certificate is not a fake? Because we have to be so careful with fakes these days. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
I'm back. Prime Minister, you did not cut their salary. They get all was for them. If they have to go on all the radio stations making noise for raise of pay, they see what's going on. It's tax to pay them, and some people don't even have no job. It's social they have to depend on, and businesses not doing well. Some getting nothing. They never used to pay in because they don't want Timothy Harris put his hand on their money. They might learn by the mistake now. And if they don't care, Prime Minister, you have to care because you have the country to bring back to what it was. They see police and teachers demonstrating for a raise of pay. In other countries, no demonstration would happen like before. What heart the teachers have for the children? It's them why they have a job. There was children too. Miss Bryan, we will vote for you to be there. Never mind the country small. Debt is debt. Prime Minister, thank you for everything, you and the CMO. Prime Minister, you're keeping your country safe. You're catching them quick. Please look out for your callers. Those are who keeping up the program every Tuesday night. Miss Bryan, we will vote for you to keep you up. Please, Prime Minister, don't forget the appointment with the gentleman. I know you're very busy. Get home safely all.
Thank you very much, Alice. Love you.
And thank you so much for your vote of confidence. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good night again.
Yes, just quickly,
Yes.
please.
Yes, I will take me quick. Yes. This question goes to Dr. Wilkinson, Dr. Laws. Now, Dr. Wilkinson, we know that the COVID rampant in the world, destroying, people want to destroy everybody, everyone. Know that when we got a community spread, well, could we not? We hear 6 come from a home, right? I would like to know that if we cannot know the village, where the parish, these 6 people who get contact with COVID come from, because I believe that is important to people know that what's going on. Because we are 6 come from one home, but we're in the village, we're in the community. Anyway, that's my question.
Okay, thank you so much for your question, call. I think at this stage, if we have no additional calls, we can begin to address the questions and see how many text messages we can get in, because we gave persons that option, and we'd like to take at least as many as we can from that. And also to callers, especially when we have programs such as this one, where we have quite a number of persons trying to get in, it is always advisable and kind as well of you to call in and try and make your contributions in a timely manner so we can take as many calls as possible. We have a call about cycles of amplification. I have no idea what that is, but I'm not the expert here. So I will put the call to one of our doctors. How many cycles of amplification are used for us to identify the virus? And they also ask, once you get the virus, you sort of build up a natural immunity. So why would somebody who previously had COVID-19 still need to be vaccinated?
Well, what I can tell you, initially in our testing, we sent our samples to CAFR, and after that we developed the testing capacity locally at the Next Generation Lab and now at the Joseph and France Hospital, and we depend on the experts there who are trained in laboratory technology to do the processing and to give us the results. I am not the expert in the lab, and so I can't answer a question as it relates to the amplification, but I can tell you that we have confidence in the labs that we have here because they have given us tests that we have initially checked with CAFR, and there was 100% correlation.
And why should someone who already contracted the virus get vaccinated?
Okay. When one gets infected, you develop some natural immunity. But following persons in this new disease, it has shown that the immunity you get from the natural infection is not as robust and not as long as getting it through vaccination. And so when someone gets infected, they may have antibodies, but after 90 days, these antibodies start to wane. And that is why it is recommended that even if you got COVID-19, you should be vaccinated once you recover.
I wanted to also add,
sure,
because the caller provided some information which wasn't totally accurate. A number of the scientific journals are now documenting an increasing number of persons who are getting reinfection with COVID-19, and in some cases the second infection is even worse than the first, and so that's why it's highly recommended for COVID-19 survivors to maybe wait 2, 3 to 6 months and then proceed to accept the COVID-19 vaccine.
The Bible. But I want to remind the caller that the Bible said faith without works is dead, and it is through the belief in God, etc., and the strength that He's given us why we are here in this fight. And one just cannot decide they're going to kneel down and pray and get the virus to go away. We have to work actively and do the things that we know, the pharmaceuticals and non-pharmaceuticals, to protect ourselves.
Is there anywhere in St. Kitts and Nevis that someone can get an antibody test?
Well, the antibody tests have been proven to be unreliable. The sensitivity and the specificity of them are not good. And that is why very early we said that we were going to go with the gold standard PCR test. And there will be no point in doing an antibody test at this point in time, because when you get vaccinated, you will generate antibodies. And so if you were to do an antibody test now on the 17,000 plus persons who were vaccinated, it will come up positive, indicating that we have antibodies.
How can we determine if an incoming passenger's certificate, vaccination certificate, is authentic?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. Recently, the CNN had an article highlighting some of the features of a fake COVID-19 vaccination record. And so our IT techs who help in processing the entry form, they've studied the features highlighted in same, and so they now know the differences, and so they are pretty good now in terms of vetting the COVID-19 certificates that we are receiving?
I think at this stage we can try to take some of the messages that came in via WhatsApp, and just again to tell you that we have had quite a high volume of text messages, and I don't think we'll be able to get through all of them during the program, but someone will be trying to follow up after the program comes to an end. We have a question here. Well, it's more of a statement, rather, and it says, Mr. William Hodge, education is a must. You have to push to have all the schools in St. Kitts built 3 floors high to make room for lots of children who are migrating with their parents to St. Kitts. Don't make the schools longer, but higher. You save lots of land doing so. Bring in some American teachers to teach good grammar so children can learn to speak proper English. And I think I've not changed it. That is how we get the messages, so persons can know that we read the messages as they're sent to us, if I don't paraphrase. We have, good evening, patients who are on dialysis, that is renal patients, can these patients take the vaccine?
Yes.
Quick answer. Good evening to everyone. I just wanted to know, what is the price to stay at OTI?
It's $500 for the 2-week period.
Would that be US or EC? US. Okay.
Yes.
Good evening. Just like to compliment the Prime Minister and the whole team of persons who have been doing an excellent job to keep our country safe. Grateful if one of the doctors could elaborate on the mask, how the mask should be properly worn. I have seen people with the mask just covering the mouth. In fact, one lady said today that the last time she checked, that is how the mask is supposed to be worn. She was in a business place with just her mouth covered and fairly close to people.
Well, we've said repeatedly the mask must cover the nose and the mouth.
In 2018, this person said they were diagnosed with allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis. Thank you so much, Dr. Wilkinson, which has left me with scarred lungs. Is it recommended for someone like me with chronic respiratory problems to take the AstraZeneca vaccine?
Well, that person who has lung disease, if they were to get COVID-19, they would not feel well. What I recommend is that they get evaluated by their doctor first, but that condition in itself is not a contraindication to taking the vaccine.
This person asked, how can a guy be allowed to open a bar by factory school and persons not vaccinated? I'm not aware of that situation. I don't know if anyone is. Okay, panelists are not aware of that situation. Viewer or text messenger, the person who sent that text message to us. National Bank has a way of asking you to pull down your mask while in the bank with others in the same space. This is a potential for the virus to spread. They say the teller must be able to see the face of the person who is doing the transaction. Is that a concern?
I think in most banks, as a security reason, they ask you to take down your mask temporarily and you put it back up, and I don't think that there's any problem there at all. There's also a barrier now between the teller and the person, and so just taking it down temporarily, just that they can identify you and capture you on the camera, there's nothing wrong with that. We have to balance safety and security.
This person wants to know if it's advisable for nurses to change their clothes once they've finished working, as they walk in public in the same clothes they've worn to work at the hospital.
That's not advisable. No, I mean, one can safely leave the hospital in their clothes.
Some of these, luckily, we've answered already. Well, the panelists have answered already. Do all the visitors that come into the island take a COVID test at the airport before they embark to the hotel?
It's only if upon arrival there is an issue with the pre-arrival RT-PCR test. For example, if it's not the proper RT-PCR test, if it's a rapid test inadvertently, or if it's a sample, if the sample was an oropharyngeal versus nasopharyngeal, that individual may be tested upon arrival. Also, if the test is a little over 3 days or 4 days old, the individual may be asked to be tested on arrival.
For persons returning home to the Federation with children, if they're fully vaccinated and they're returning with children, is it 9 days for them or 14?
Okay, so the present protocol states that if you are fully vaccinated, and let me just pause to explain what that means, meaning if you have the 2 doses of a vaccine that has a 2-dose regime, and 2 weeks would have passed between your last dose and your date of travel, then you qualify for a 9-day quarantine. However, if you're traveling with a child, because up until present, the children are not yet vaccinated, the children won't qualify for the 9-day quarantine, and you can't leave a child in quarantine unattended. And so if you are with children, you really would forfeit the 9-day and would have to spend 14 days in quarantine.
I recently took my first jab and noticed a swollen lymph node on the side I took the jab. This is painful for a few days now. Is this a symptom of the vaccine, or should I seek medical attention?
Well, one can always get a reaction in the lymph nodes, and I would tell the person that if it is still swollen and painful, they can see their doctor to see whether or not they would need to get additional treatment to get it resolved.
What variant of the virus do we have in St. Kitts?
So that's not tested as yet, and so we do not have the testing capabilities locally to do genomic sequencing and decipher the variant. The samples would have to be sent to the Caribbean Public Health Agency to provide that information.
If there was a security breach, can one be punished by law, or is there nothing in the law to take one to court for such a security breach?
Well, it all depends on what the security breach is. If, for example, someone is supposed to be in quarantine and they leave quarantine and go into the general public, that person can be arrested. Sometimes, though, there can be breaches that are not illegal, because the virus is a microscopic organism, and just in, handling your mask, etc., touching a surface that was not properly cleaned, one can have a breach there, and that should not be punishable.
This one asks the Prime Minister, what do you think about getting another COVID-19 team? The present team is doing a wonderful job, but they are overworked, and lots of mistakes can be made when a body is overworked. Also, are there plans on seeking a field hospital just in case our hospital becomes overwhelmed?
There are no plans for a field hospital. We are satisfied with the work of the current team. Of course, we always welcome additional people to come on board, but we have a tried and tested team that has delivered excellent results to the country. And at this time of crisis, it is important that we have continuity. We, of course, would express concern because the team is a hard-working team. We have to be very mindful that we are also a small country with very limited resources. And so we will advise all those who are doing the yeoman service to continue to take good care of their health as best as they can. The country needs them, and we certainly would not want to have anyone missing from this Herculean fight in which we are engaged.
There are members of households on self-quarantine who are called to report to work. Is this supposed to happen?
I'm not sure to what.
I'm not aware of that.
I'm not sure.
Okay, the doctors are not aware, so I guess if you have a situation like that, you can call the hotline and ask a question there, and the hotline number I think is 311? Yes. 311, and bring it to their attention.
Just to say, if you're in quarantine, you are expected to stay in the setting that has been authorized.
Just like to compliment the Prime Minister and the whole team of persons who have been doing an excellent job to keep our country safe. And this person is asking, are fishers allowed to be on the street because because of the curfew. We had that situation last year with the curfew where fishermen wanted to know if they could go out to sea earlier.
Well, the rules are the rules as they now exist, and everyone is expected to comply. In establishing the quarantine period, we attempted to do justice to the largest number of persons. The quarantine goes up to 5 a.m. It means that the fisher folk should get themselves ready to be able to move at 5:01 a.m. The the curfew period is as it is, and we expect full compliance. We will also want to urge all our fisher folks and their families to get themselves vaccinated. These measures are in place to protect you. And so the more persons who become proactive in being vaccinated, they become less of a need for us to impose these measures to protect persons who should be doing that by their own wisdom and judgment. So as we get closer to herd immunity, the age perhaps of curfews would be long gone. And that, of course, depends upon every individual over 18 taking the conscious decision to move ahead in his or her self-interest to be vaccinated.
And I think at this time we can allow our panelists to give their closing remarks. We've tried our best to get through as many questions as possible. I want to thank all our listeners for participating this evening. And we will have closing remarks in the reverse order of our opening remarks. So that means Mr. Hodge, William Hodge, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, we will begin with you.
Thank you again, Jackie. I want to end by reiterating that we appreciate all the hard work that our school administrators and teachers and support staff have done over the school year. We have a few more weeks to go outside of these 2 weeks that we are closed. We are hoping that much would be done during the 2 weeks in terms of students reviewing for the examinations at the end of the year. We are looking forward to this happening, and we encourage parents to do their best to ensure that students are engaged meaningfully. We would like to again appeal, encourage all of our teachers and adults who work in our schools and parents to get vaccinated as a means of helping to protect our youngsters as well as our elderly folks who are not able to take the vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hodge. We'll now hear from the Chief Medical Staff at the JNF General Hospital, Medical Chief of Staff. Thank you so much. Medical Chief of Staff at the JNF General Hospital, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson.
The message is going to be the same. We want to urge everyone who can be vaccinated to go out and get vaccinated. We see how this virus has gotten into our schools. The persons below the age of 18 who cannot make the decision to go and get vaccinated because there is no vaccine that is available for them. And you need to do this not just for yourself, but for the children who can't be vaccinated, for the elderly and frail who cannot be vaccinated. Do it not just for yourself, but for your country and for the global community. And so I hope that we continue to see records being broken in persons coming forward for their first dose, and I'm happy to see that the number of persons who are getting their second dose to be fully vaccinated, that percentage is climbing significantly every day. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wilkinson. We'll hear now from the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel.
Ladies and gentlemen, the virus is back. At present, we are trying to contain this cluster of cases. And I want to just pause and state that this is the term that describes the present pattern of transmission, cluster of cases. So I want to underscore that we have not yet declared that we are in community transmission. So at present, we are trying to contain this cluster of cases, and it's very important for us to do all we can in so doing. And that means we need to come on board, accept the vaccine, because that's the best tool we have in this battle. And I also want to urge individuals to remember to wear their face mask when in the public places, maintain good hand hygiene and physical distance, such that we can break the chains of transmission of the virus and flatten the curve. We all have an individual and collective responsibility in this fight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Laws. And now we'll hear from Prime Minister, Dr. the Honourable Timothy Harris.
Thank you very much, Raki. Firstly, to thank you for moderating the program so superbly tonight again. To thank all the many callers. We have had several thousands across the various platforms tune in tonight, and that is very good. And the interest certainly has peaked, and what is the central matter on the minds of everyone everywhere. All over the world, there is unity of action in the efforts to ensure that countries move ahead in defeating COVID-19. And a critical indicator of success is how well countries are moving, one, in minimizing death, and secondly, in their vaccination rollout. We are fortunate at this time that our small island, the smallest independent state in the hemisphere, is among the top leaders in its performance, in its incredible successful management of the COVID-19. Dr. Wilkinson tonight outlined that we have worked all along with a four-pronged strategy to get us where they are at. And that strategy has been successfully implemented so far. There are challenges, as there always will be, but we are moving in the right direction. The statistics which were outlined earlier indicated that today has been our best day in the administering of doses of vaccines. And so we are on the right path, and we must never become complacent in doing good. Persons have the right to choose. It's always easy to choose the wrong way. The harder decision is to make a sober judgment that vaccination is in the best interest of everyone. We ask not only that you consider yourself. The events of the last couple of days indicate that the consequences of just one person being infected with COVID-19 and inadvertently transmitting it to persons could be disastrous. The high level of anxiety in communities, in households, children being traumatized, being placed in quarantine, family members become victim of irresponsible behavior where their names are publicized in ways which are unhelpful to the progress of their own healing. And at a time when they need comfort, they, as it were, are exposed in ways that are unkind. That uncharitable nature is not part of what the good people of St. Kitts and Nevis should be exhibiting. I want to end on a note of appeal. Many persons throughout the length and breadth of this country have worked so very hard to make St. Kitts and Nevis a success story to the rest of the world. The gains that we have made must be consolidated upon and be expanded on. We must never go into reverse. And therefore I want to invite every adult individual in St. Kitts and Nevis to move forward without delay to get themselves vaccinated. Do it for yourself, do it for your family, most importantly, do it for this precious country which we all love. I pray God's continuing favor on all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I thank him for, in spite of the challenge, the awesome responsibility of leading a country at a time when we have a crisis, a global crisis. Once in 100 years, you get such crises. I want to say that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis still continue to inspire me. And for love of country, I continue to do my very best to keep this beloved country and its people safe and secure. It requires a collective responsibility, and I invite all in the true spirit of the all of society approach to come on board, do what you can, do the best you can to ensure we move ahead with further success in our vaccination build-out. The vaccination is the most powerful tool in the arsenal to defeat the COVID-19 pandemic. So again, thank you for tuning in, for being part of Leadership Matters. We value your insights. We were encouraged by the tremendous flow of questions that came in, and some of them were quite instructive. We will continue to give our best service. May God bless us all again.
Thank you all so much for tuning in and listening, for being so patient and supportive. We appreciate all your questions, and you, our callers and viewers, make this program what it is, in addition to our listeners, because we know there are many more people listening than calling in, and we want to thank all of you. I hope you found the program educational and informative, and that many of you got answers to your questions. I'm sorry we weren't able to address all of them. You know, we try our best to take every question, every concern, and every suggestion. But this evening, that was not the case. I know you appreciated the information that was shared with you, and I hope you enjoy your evening. My name is Jacqueline Bryan, and I was your host. Have a good night. Take care.